So let's start with the first technique of today, objections that we get throughout the sales engagement. We all, in a selling business, we know that we are selling to prospects. Prospects are humans, not robots, at least not today. And when you are selling to humans, humans have emotions. And during every sales engagement, it's natural to expect that you're going to receive objections. In fact, if you ask me how many times I have received objections during the sales engagements, 100%. Almost 100% in every engagement, I have come across objections. Of course, the nature of objections vary from opportunity to opportunity, but it's a well-known fact that you can't have a sales process or sales cycle or sales engagement without receiving those objections. But the problem is, sometimes these objections are emotional. Sometimes these objections are stubborn. And these objections are stubborn and emotional. Why? Because they are rooted in the emotional old brain. They are not rooted in the analytical neocortex or new brain. And if this is the case, if you want your discussion to move forward, you have to reframe the discussion. You have to reframe the objection in a way that addresses that negative energy and converts that into a positive energy. Sounds complicated. Let me explain it with an example. And let me start with a personal example, I would say a very personal example, before I share a business example. My mom, she is a very emotional person. A couple of years ago, she was very sick and she had to take a lot of medicines for her blood pressure, for sugar, for many kinds of problems. And she was not very punctual in taking those medicines. So every day she was skipping some of the medicines, and that was impacting her health. The results were getting really bad and worse over time. So I was speaking with her on a daily basis, and I was encouraging her to take all those medicines punctually without skipping them. And I was reminding her that the effects on her health and what she is causing her by not taking those medicines properly or punctually. To be honest, she was not listening, and the problem continues to happen. One day, I got really very frustrated. I literally lost my control, and I just told her that, Mom, if you're not going to take those medicines, I'm not going to speak with you. And I just hanged up the phone. The next morning, my family told me, my siblings told me that she took all the medicines. I learned a lesson that day. What I learned was, as long as I was giving her all the logic, all the reasons that were those reasons, that logic, that what the impact on her health and all that stuff was not compelling enough for her. But when she realized that her son is not going to speak with her, she immediately listened. She immediately listened to that emotional response that I gave. And that's the thing. When the objection is emotional, the response also needs to be emotional. I repeat myself. When your buyer is giving an emotional objection, you can't handle that with a rational reply. The response needs to counter that objection in an emotional way. Translating that to the business world, how many times, how often do we come across pricing objections from our buyers? Almost all the time. 99%, 100%, most of the times in every opportunity, we do come across pricing objections from our buyers. Yes or yes? Yes. What do we typically do? What we do in sales when we come across those pricing objections? Share your answers during the chat section. Feel free to share your thoughts. What do sales and pre-sales do when they come across these pricing objections from the buyers? For the sake of time, I'm going to answer it. Most of the sales immediately go for discounting. They immediately start offering discounting to customers. What do pre-sales do? Sales engineers do. They start explaining and justifying their product, their value proposition, or their solution by going into the details of functions and features and what they do which makes them special from others and so on. This happens most of the time. Whenever a pricing objection is raised, sales go into discounting and sales engineers start going into function and features discussion. You know what's the problem with this approach? This is exactly what buyers expect that vendors will do when they raise a pricing objection. And we are just getting trapped into their game by doing exactly what they are anticipating. I'm a firm believer that when you have sold on value, discounting is not required. I repeat, when you have sold on value, discounting is not required. Value selling does not need discounting. So I'll share another example here, again my own example here, that some years ago, or to be precise, almost 7 years ago, I was negotiating a very big deal in Germany, in mid of Germany, with one of our customers. And they told me that, Mr. Minhas, your pricing is too high, too expensive. I listened to that objection properly, I listened to them. And then I shared my example with them. It was the winter time and I told them that I was returning from Innsbruck to Munich, from Austria to Germany, and my car, together with my family, and my car was hit by a snowstorm, and it was very difficult to drive in that storm. Thankfully, I reached home, or the family reached home safe and sound. When I reached home, I thanked God, first of all, and then I thanked my four-wheel drive that made that possible. You know why I shared that example? I shared that example for two reasons. It shows that I spent more on something for which I was thankful later on. Secondly, that example or that response was emotional. Why? Because it was around the safety and security of the family. When I shared that example, we didn't have any further discussion on the pricing. The deal was already sold. So, just to summarize, we are going to get objections in a sales engagement all the time. But whenever there is an objection, there is a reason. Whenever there is a problem, there is an opportunity. It's all about reframing the question to innovate your thinking. Objection reframing is all about understanding the emotional stubbornness that is behind that objection and converting that negative energy into a positive energy so that you can take the discussion forward from there. I'm going to share an example with you. Long time ago, in 2006 or 2007, almost like 13-14 years ago, Volkswagen in the United States got a very big objection. They were labeled as very expensive vehicle, very expensive car. What they did, they didn't drop their prices. They handled that objection in a very different way. I don't want to reveal the surprise. I like to share these videos with you so that you could see how they handled that objection which they received 14 years ago, being a very expensive car in the United States. Some of these videos are very old, so the quality is not that good, but you should be able to at least get the message. Enjoy.
So what do you think?
I like it.
Yeah, I know, but they've been making parachutes for 50 years.
What about this one?
It's not as rigorously tested. The stitching isn't as good, but
Yeah, sometimes does the job, right?
yeah.
Cheers.
Tell you what, why don't I throw in this little beauty too?
Obviously. Get in.
By 2006, there was plenty of bad news at Volkswagen. A once beloved brand had lost its relevance and suffered 5 consecutive years of sales declines. But there was a bright spot within it all. Both Jetta and Passat happened to include a rather impressive laundry list of German-engineered safety features. An intelligent crash response system, 6 standard airbags, anti-lock braking system, electronic brake pressurized distribution, a lower anchor and tether system, electronic stabilization program, active seat restraint, crash-optimized front end, anti-intrusion side door beams, and a 5-star front-side impact rating. Unfortunately, when you put it that way, it's a big snore. Most automobile safety ads relied on the same old formula: controlled collisions in controlled environments with simulated human beings, and always talked about avoiding the accident. This was the inspiration for Safe Happens.
It just gives me the feeling like she's not listening to me.
Have you tried not saying like every other word?
What?
Remember your ski trip story?
Yeah.
I was going down the hill and this guy cut me off and there was a crowd and
come on, that's
and I was
not
like,
me.
look, stuff either happens or it doesn't happen. Stuff doesn't sort of happen.
Holy.
On the web, Safe took a more lighthearted turn as surfers managed to survive internet dings in the same way that drivers encounter surprises along the road. Boink. On banners that clicked right through to VWFeatures.com. At VWFeatures.com, shoppers lovingly customize their very own Jettas before using a menu to lovingly pulverize it in equally customizable short films. Letting Safe happen just the way it should, in the most unexpected circumstances. Suddenly, a taboo of car advertising, showing your own car in less than pristine condition, was tossed onto the shoulder like an old shoe. The sight of a crunched Jetta even became somewhat iconic in brochures, ads for auto shows, and even in and around VW dealerships.
Who cried?
I did.
I mean,
It was a sad ending and everything. I
Just saw you with your hand in your chin.
that's called concentrating on the moment.
It's more like holding your quivering upper lip.
Exactly.
I wasn't crying, okay? I mean, seriously, I don't know why.
Safe Happens ignited one of the most robust conversations of the year. And like any good conversation, it started with questions.
But how many stars for the ad?
Does it go too far?
What in the world is VW trying to accomplish here?
Does this make you want to buy the car?
Exactly.
Does
Does
it say-
shock sell or not?
Many are calling the company demanding to know if the actors sustained serious injuries.
While talking heads talked, bloggers blogged, and critics critiqued, consumers, well, consumed. But the brand was listening and saw fit to respond with the 2006 Passat.
So they're just driving along talking about whatever, and suddenly, wham.
I know, I saw it.
Just think maybe they went too far.
I think where they went was real.
But is it just shocking for the sake of shocking?
But being in an accident is less shock. That's what they call it, an accident.
Yeah, but you're watching TV, commercial comes on.
From Times Square, this
This is Good Morning America.
While some might question the tactics behind the new Volkswagen ads, there's no doubt they're working. After a disastrous 2005, sales are up this year by 20%.
This is exactly the way accidents happen. It's perfectly captured. It breaks all the rules of advertising. Everybody's talking about it in the blogosphere and everywhere else, and sales are up.
Dealers relayed anecdotes about customers entering dealerships describing, quote, those freaky Jetta commercials. On showroom floors across the country, the conversation had turned to safe. Safe happens. Proof that when safe becomes just as startling as danger, it magically becomes relevant. Thanks for watching.
Holy. Enough said.